What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and this is podcasting business school. And that totally threw me off. I think I heard somebody come in my door. They just dropped off a package or something right as I was saying that. I'm like, that's never happened in the intro before. Welcome to Podcasting Business School, pod pals. It's your buddy Adam here, and we are off to a great start to this podcast audit session with my brand new pod pal, Brad, from the Standout Business Show. I'm very excited to dig in. I know you got a lot of great things going around your brand and your show right now. So yeah, let's get the party started. Brad, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Long-time listener, first-time audit.
Yes. Welcome, Brad, pal. Well, yeah, you've got a great show, great brand, doing a lot, helping a lot of people with what you do. I'm very interested to set a 6-month goal with you, as I always do with podcast audits. So 6 months from now, we're kind of leveling up in the area that you want to level up today. What does that look like for you?
I would like to focus on audience growth. I think getting my podcast up to that $1,000 person milestone, 1,000 listener milestone
Yep.
per episode, that would be a really good place to be, I think, in terms of the next level of development for the show. My show has been doing well from a monetization standpoint because I was looking back over the last 12 months or so, and most of my clients have come because of the networking that I've been able to do with the guests that I have, because most of my episodes are interviews, and either a guest has raised their hand and said, look, I want to do video with you and I'd like your help with that. Or they have been, putting me on something that they're doing, like do a presentation to a group that they have, or directly just referring somebody to me. And it's been really a great vehicle for that. But at the same time, my listenership, I think I have just over 100 or so people each week right now. And so I just read the book, 10X is better than 2X or easier than 2X. And I thought, well, let's do 10X. Let's go for that.
Yes. Yes. Is that a Dan Sullivan book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I've worked with Dan. I was in one of his masterminds for 7 years, and like that dude is awesome. So any of you guys that want to really expand your mindset, check out anything by Dan Sullivan. He's got a lot of podcasts too. But yeah, okay, let's 10X. Let's 10X those downloads here. There are 3 different lanes that I like to kind of analyze when it comes to download growth. One of them is leveraging other people's podcasts, podcast guesting, collaborations. The other one is paid ads, or Instagram, Facebook, podcast player apps. Then we look at social media marketing, kind of having a general strategy around that. Any particular place you would like to start, or any one of those really standing out as like, this is kind of a weak point you haven't been leveraging yet?
Yeah, I think a place for me to do a lot more than I've been doing is to be a guest on other shows.
Okay.
I just think that would be a natural, and I just haven't taken the time to start making that happen very much.
Okay, cool. So I think there are a few low-hanging fruit, easy solutions that we could look at here. Since you're primarily doing an interview-based show, I would definitely look at potential guests that have podcasts that would make sense for you to be on, because there's no easier way to get an invite to be on someone's podcast than when you have them on your show first and you make friends, and especially if a lot of these people are like, how do we work together, Brad? I want to hire you. Like, it really makes sense that if you are choosing between guest A and guest B, and guest B would be a great client and they have a podcast that you would be great for, okay, let's do this. So, and even like, you may go back through your interview Rolodex and go, who has podcasts that I could follow up on and go, hey, this is so-and-so, this is Brad. We did an interview back in the day. I've been sharing that out. I've always get great feedback off that interview. I'm starting to do more interviews on other shows. I'm doing a bit of a podcast tour. I noticed that you have a show. Would you be interested in having a conversation about X, Y, and Z? That type of a reach out is so much different than the cold, spammy ones that we all get. Like, it's just comedic now at this point. I love opening these emails. I used to hate, like, At first, when the PR firms start emailing you as a podcaster, you're like, oh my God, like someone's noticing. We're happy just to get an email from anybody, even though it's kind of like spammy and half the time they don't use the right name or the right show or anything.
Right.
It's like the template that they didn't fill in. So at first, we're kind of excited about that. Then it gets super annoying. But now I'm in the stage past super annoying. I'm like, how bad is this one going to be? And it's like, somebody was pitching to be on my show and they were like a dentist expert. And I was like, why? This doesn't make any sense. I do like to make a joke on my Instagram, like 9 out of 10 agree. 9 out of 10 dentists agree you should listen to Podcasting Business School, because it makes no sense. But those type of people are reaching out to be on my show. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But anyway, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about go back through the people you've already connected with, you've already created with, collaborated with. I would go through that Rolodex first, then moving forward, any guests that could potentially be in that guest seat, I would prioritize anybody that does have a current show. And then from there, I mean, your niche is so good for like business shows. I mean, anybody that's wanting to talk marketing, talk video business, building authority, all that stuff, you could be a great guest for. So what I would personally start doing is start looking through specific categories in like Apple and Spotify top rankings. And like Apple has their top 200, and you can go in whatever niche you want, start at the back edge of that. And what I used to do with my health show was I would have my VA go 10 at a time. Like the show's ranked number 191 through 200. All right. She would look through and go, hey, I think these ones would be good guests and you might be a good guest for. Then I would kind of vet those ones, so I don't have to go through all of them. I go, okay, reach out to this one and that one. And then she would reach out and invite them to be on my show first. And then, I make friends, and that way I'm not only having good guests on my show, I'm having good guests that have top ranked podcasts. So they have an audience that I would like to reach. And man, this worked so well. In 1 year, I just did this week after week after week. And I was doing more interviews than I do now. But, in the health space, it was making sense for me to do this. And I was on 50 of the top 200 podcasts, health podcasts on Apple, like the big health category. I was on 50 of the top 200. I was on 3 of the top 10 shows that I had no business. Like there's no way if I had cold reached out to those people, no way that they would put me on. I invited them on first. I'm good at making friends, and we became friends and they invited me on. So, so that worked really well as far as guesting on other people's podcasts. So any ideas or thoughts popping up or questions popping up from those kind of micro strategies I just went over?
Yeah, I really like that in the sense of creating warm outreach. I mean, first of all, just reaching out to people, inviting them on my show who have a podcast. That's a great one. I'm going to jump on that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get a lot of people, it's not spam, but they're emailing me saying, hey, I'd like to be on your show, or they're an assistant of somebody saying, I've got somebody who I think would be great for your show. And usually they're not. Like, it's a complete miss.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be that guy who's like cold outreach. This seems like a much warmer way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm just being completely honest with everybody listening in, and my pod pal Brad here especially, I have not seen anybody really doing the PR guest outreach thing in a great way. Like they're mostly spammy, and they just follow up. And I've got this one guy, like, this is another experiment I'm doing. Like, how many times will this guy follow up? And like, he sent me 12 emails, like 2 a week for 6 weeks. And I'm like, how long will this guy go? I haven't said a word to him, and he just keeps following up and following up and following up. So I'm just kind of like running my own little experiment with that. But I really don't see a lot of validity in like, let's pay $5,000 or $10,000 to these PR firms that are going to get you booked on however many shows, but they don't say how many downloads you're going to get out of those shows at all. And that's what really matters. So, we're content creators. We have that advantage, and we can have people onto our platform and leverage that as a relationship builder. And sometimes those relationships turn into clients. Sometimes they turn into speaking opportunities. Sometimes they'll have you come in and speak at their mastermind. Like, I'm sure you've been invited to speak in memberships and masterminds like I have. And it's like, it's really cool to be able to leverage that. And sometimes it's just access to really cool people, like you're a fan and you have access to them. And Like with my health show, I interviewed Gretchen Rubin and Michael Hyatt, two of my favorite authors, and there was no way I would have ever been able to talk to them if I didn't have a podcast. So that's a nice little bonus as well. But then I think, kind of thinking next level strategy wise, if you could come up with some sort of a campaign where you're like, this month is like November is going to be enhance your audio month, or not audio, video month. It's like create amazing videos month, or create like some sort of monthly thing that you create. And then you go and reach back out to people that have been on your show before that have podcasts, like, hey, November is create amazing video month. I know you have a show. You came on my show. We have a great collaboration. Here's what I'm wanting to talk about. Would you be willing to consider me for a guest spot on your show in the month of November or December or whatever? Or 2024 is blah, blah, the year of
video,
video or whatever. And just like create a theme, and that gives you an extra reason to reach out. Now, if you're a little bit nervous about that, if you want to kind of reignite relationships, you could do something like an Instagram live panel or something like that, where you have previous guests back on, and a few per week or something like that. Just kind of rewarm the relationship a little bit. Depends how many steps you want to take in between before you make that ask. Yeah, I mean, I think little things like that, playing the long game, has served me really well, Brad. So that's something I definitely recommend.
I like it.
Good. So I think, yeah, that will take care of that component of the growth. And like, if you're already having listeners and guests wanting to become clients, that tells me that what you're teaching is what people want, and they want more of it. So they're like, this is great. The free stuff is great. I want the paid stuff from Brad because this is so good. So I think you going in and scooping up people into your world from other people's shows, that's going to be very effective for you. Now, when you do more guesting, it is important to have kind of a very specific call to action game plan. So I recommend, some different levels of a call to action, where something very simple, like making them aware I have a podcast also. This makes sense. Make sure you come in and listen to my show. I would give them an episode to start with. That way, it's not only like they're scrolling through all the feed, because you don't know when in time they're listening to this. Be like, hey, start at episode 400. That's what I want you to start. And you can kind of tie it into the topic that you've discussed on their show, and go, okay. And going into it, I always think like, all right, here are the kind of the 4 or 5 things where this could go. I've got a few episodes in mind. I'll make a little mental note. Wherever it does go, I'll be like, all right, that's the one that I want them to start with. So at the end, when they say, hey, let us know, blah, 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 all the things, I'll go, yeah, make sure you subscribe to my show wherever you listen to audio, and start with episode whatever, because what we talked about today, we're going to unpack that in a different way or go a little bit deeper. So they're already podcast listeners listening to podcasts. Let's give them a reason to jump over to my show and continue the conversation. So I like that. And I like some sort of freebie lead magnet that you feel really good about. That whatever you talked about, what is that lead magnet that connects there? So if I go on somebody's show and talk about download growth strategies, I'm going to promote my podcast growth scorecard lead magnet, because that is a direct relationship there, where that just makes sense as the next step. So any thoughts on the call to action strategy when you are guessing? Do you feel good about lead magnets and things like that?
Yeah, first of all, I could see creating an episode that is parallel with the topic that I would be discussing as a guest. And so if you want to go deeper on this, or if you want this other angle, that's right over here on episode number, whatever the number is.
Yep.
That's a great invitation. And a lead magnet that I've been using this last year is it's just a PDF, but it's a guide that gives people 40 video hooks for making especially short form video. And just like, it's sort of, it's structured to be pretty much an endless array of, if you're wondering what to say in your video, especially when you're just starting, use this guide and it's going to, plug you right in. So that's an easy one that people can get. And it's already set up on a landing page that is hooked up to my email.
Perfect. Perfect. We build that list.
Yeah.
We all know that is so, so important. So yeah, I think you're well set up to, when we guest on other people's podcasts, ultimately we want them to come over to our world, our ecosystem, our show. And just at a minimum, if they like, you can only promote one thing, I'm always, here's a podcast, here's my podcast, here's an episode to start with. Because I'm like, if I can just get them listening to my show, they're going to get in my world. They're going to hear all the calls to action, the current things that I'm promoting.
Yeah.
So that, and having a few benchmark episodes, and that may be where it could be handy for you to have a few solo episodes where you're just kind of like the 10 mistakes that most entrepreneurs are making with video or something like that, just to have a few of those benchmarks that you can use to kind of like build expert positioning. And then with that being in mind, if you're going to go out and create some of those at the beginning of those, I would welcome new listeners and be like, hey, if you're brand new to the show, just want to welcome you and kind of give them a little 1 minute getting started into your world. Because thinking into the future, I'm going to be referring people to this episode from other shows.
Right.
So kind of connecting the dots. I'm always looking at strategy like that of like, how do we make the absolute most of every single angle of this experience? So if you can kind of tie a few of those things together, it'll make everything efficient and everybody will be settled right in. All of a sudden they're binge listening to your show and they're like, Brad, do I hire you, man? Which is what it's all about as a service provider. All right. So I feel like we covered the other people's podcasts pretty well there. How do we feel about those other two lanes with like paid ads and social media marketing? Are either of those two things that you want to focus on here today?
Well, I do a fair amount of social media marketing. I want to just lay out kind of what I'm up to, and you can give me another layer or two.
Yeah.
So at this moment, I have a pretty regular system where every week my show is recorded as a live stream. And so we're going live every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then by the following Monday, I publish that as the audio version. I'll edit it down and make it a little bit more polished with an intro and an outro, and then push that out over. I use Buzzsprout. And so that goes out on Monday. But then what I'm doing on social media is that, first of all, I take the Spotify player and I embed it into a LinkedIn newsletter article. So the player just sits right there and people can listen. And my LinkedIn newsletter is my show. And so the name of the Standout Business Show is the name of the newsletter. And so every week on Monday, I publish that to my newsletter subscribers. And so that's, I probably have as many newsletter subscribers as I do listeners who have subscribed at this point.
Right.
So that group of people, LinkedIn is cool about it. Like when you publish an article, they send an email to your subscribers saying, hey, there's this. And so people get it. And anyway, that happens every single week. And then during the week, I'll take short video clips that are just a minute or less. And it's either, me and the guest doing something where it's highlighting what the guest had to say, or it's just me saying something. And so I do 3 of those every week individually. So what's happening as the week goes by is that prior to the Thursday show, I'll schedule the live stream, and that will just appear as a post on either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then the guest, if they're cool, will share it to their feed. And then we're live on Thursday, and then the following Monday, it comes out as an audio version. And then in between those days, there are these little clips that are all of it is coming from the show.
Okay. So when is the audio live on Apple Podcasts and things like that?
Monday morning at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. So the initial live stream Thursday, and then the main hub of information and promotion starts on Monday, basically.
Right.
Cool. No, I mean, I think that sounds really good. I'm big on, 3 to 5 marketing promo assets within the first 72 hours that we're live. And you've got the LinkedIn newsletter, you've already got the live stream, and then, any video content that you've got rolling out from there. All that sounds good, especially with the video content. mean, that is your business. So that's,
I
that
have to
is,
do it.
yeah, that is extra important. Now, with that, like I know, like one thing that you can, and you may already be doing this. I mean, you probably are, but like showing your guests, like I had Fonzie and Luis the Biz Bros come on.
Hmm.
I was on their show, and they created like 400 assets.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. And they branded it all for my brand. So it was all my colors, my branding. And then the thing that happened was as I started to share those assets out, there's really cool video stuff. I'm like, I'm going to, get a lot of action on Instagram. I started getting these comments. People were like, Adam, your new videos are so much better than the old ones. And it's from me on their show, but they
Right.
made it all my branding. So it looks like it's my brand, like it's
Oh,
my
that's
stuff.
cool. Yeah.
And then I started getting these comments, and I was like, I see why they did what they did there because it
Right.
does look a lot better. But I shared way more of those assets than I normally would have, just because it did look like my brand and it fit and I had my colors and all that stuff. So that's something to think about as far
Oh,
as
I like
like
that. I like
getting them.
that's super
Yeah.
smart. I'm
So, I
gonna
mean, they don't brand it for their brand at all. It's all my colors, font. They collected all that information, and the magic it showed in the comments that literally people were like, so much better than before. I was like, oh, you're killing me. So anyway, so that's something to think about with like the videos that you're producing is maybe at least one of them like really dial it into their brand and it's like the best highlight of that guest and it makes them look super smart and young and fit and awesome or whatever. And then blast it out there with their brand scheme and colors and all that stuff. So it's just more shareable. Like you said, we want our guests to share stuff. And I always say there's a special place in hell reserved for podcast guests that don't share anything out. Like that's, I've always threatened. I think at some point, like we need a podcasters union, and we need to decide that like what happens when people don't share out. Like what kind of punishment do we do? It's like the Game of Thrones bell of shame. Like they have to walk naked through the streets, and we throw the shame bell at them or whatever.
tomatoes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think all that. I mean, your overall game plan sounds awesome. I think you tweak the branding and make it even more shareable, then you're probably going to get even more clients than you already are. And yeah, so and
Well, I really like the idea of showcasing the guest in a way that will compel them to say, "Oh, this is amazing. I'm going to use these and reuse these."
yeah,
That sounds great.
yeah, it's like, can you create that Instagram reel that person wants to pin to the top of their page so that
Right.
it's like a highlight?
Right.
And
Well,
then when you're doing your questioning, like what question could you ask them that makes them say that thing that they want to pin to the top of their page? So
right.
something
Right.
to think about.
Yeah, that's great. I love that strategy.
Cool.
I'm going to do that part
Boom.
right away.
It's in the strategy. All right. So I want to make sure that we get to shout out your brand. You're doing a lot of cool stuff. I know people can probably get a lot of good ideas just from listening to your show alone. If somebody's listening and they want to dive into your ecosystem, where's the best place to start?
Well, the URL I have for the show is Standout Business Show, or sorry, it's standoutbusiness.show. And so if you go there, you'll get right into the podcast itself. And if you want to check out what I'm doing, my business is called Awesome Video Makers. So just go to awesomevideomakers.com and you'll see all the video making world that I'm surrounded by.
Outstanding. All the video making awesomeness. All right. Well, Brad, I think we came up with some real solid strategies here. And for those of you that want to be just like Brad and come on the show for a podcast audit, I know you want to, just head on over to the main website, podcastingbusiness.school. Get signed up for a podcast audit session. Come on the show, and we'll see if we can drop a little knowledge on you. And Pod Pals, appreciate you tuning in. I'm sorry that the delivery man scared me right off the jump there when I started the show. That literally scared me. I was like, this big like boom happened. I'm like, someone's breaking in. Call 911, Brad, quick. So no, we didn't have to do that. But anyway, I appreciate you all for tuning in, getting a lot of great feedback off these podcast audits. Would love to have any of you on the show for one of these special sessions. And with that, I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time.